Our final witness tonight is William Margot. Margot is an actor, agent, critic, director, scriptwriter of adult films. I'm honored to be a part of this historical endeavor, but I feel I must preface my brief statement with an ominous headline. Welcome to Salem by the Pacific. In a society that is drug-infested, violence-racked, and polluted by chemical greed, might I respectfully remind this commission that no one has ever died from an overdose of pornography. For over 13 years, in capacities including actor, agent, critic, director, publicist, and scriptwriter, I have been extremely fortunate to be a part of the adult film industry. My multifaceted participation has been tremendously rewarding, creatively, mentally, and physically. In reference to the latter form of action, please note that my acts of natural emotional expression were performed opposite an adult partner who was always consenting to participate in a similar or, via scripting and direction, an accommodating manner. The adult film industry is an entertainment training ground and an innovative force that is dedicated to enlightening, arousing, and fulfilling its audience. That it garners an audience seeking to be thrilled and vicariously titillated places it on no lower a populace-pleasing plateau than a highly competitive sporting event or a national election. And while detractors will accuse the adult film industry and adult entertainment business of harboring a criminal element, I suspect that the aforementioned thrills also have their share of detractors and accusers. In fact, unlike the mainstream, dare I say, quote-unquote, legitimate film industry, the adult film world, having risen from the 8mm underground to bask in mainstream videotape recognition, scrupulously polices itself, refusing to allow the use of children, animals, and graphically violent or grossly aberrant recreations to produce the huge profits that many, quote-unquote, legitimate R-rated motion pictures gleefully exhibit. To this extent, considering the industriousness and perseverance of the adult film industry, forcing it back underground would only result in encouraging unconscientious factions to spuriously create and unpalatably supply lesser materials of a far more objectionable nature. This would produce a grievous chain reaction, tantamount to the length that a thirsty populace went to get anything even faintly resembling alcohol during Prohibition. The world has seen the light of adult film expression far too long for any commission to tell us that it must now be blind. I welcome your question. Did you have a question?
Your own physical health or enjoyment is one of the early comments on your participation. Can you give me any information? I asked this earlier from the representative of the American Film Association, how the performers are policing themselves or participants for sexually transmitted diseases and issue or
Well, since indeed our sexual apparatus are our tools of trade, we watch over them very closely. We go to the doctors, we have medical tests taken. I remember the first time I had something, or at least I thought I had something, which wound up being non-specific urethritis. I've never had any kind of disease like that before, and I found out it was strange. So I went to the doctor, and he laughed at me. He said, "What were you doing, digging a ditch with that thing?" And I said, "No, I was working." So they gave me some pills and went away. Years later, I had the same disease again. I went to a lesser hospital. They diagnosed it as another disease, dumped 90 million units of penicillin into me. It wouldn't go away. I went back and they gave me the pills and it went away. We watch ourselves. We take care of ourselves.
happen to know whether or not there are regular checkups asked in
Well,
the
the goal-
system, and whether or not, in fact, there's any discussion or thought about blood tests for AIDS.
Well, the AIDS situation now has become a point where the producers themselves are forcing the women and the men to go get tests and bring in cards to prove that they've had the test before they can make the film. We do police ourselves. There's a tremendous amount of censorship within our own industry, which is a paradox of truth. Now, I want to say something else in the capacity of being a talent agent and being an agent for over 10 years in Hollywood, where I ran the biggest news modeling agency in the world. I went out of my way to scare people out of my industry before allowing them into it. I didn't think anybody would ask me this question, so I'll make it very, very clear that I would tell the people that what they were about to do would haunt them the rest of their life. Because in order to get into my industry, you have to have pictures taken, which are then published in films, and this will go on forever and ever. It doesn't go away. So in a sense, when those pictures are taken, there is no future. But if you are willing to accept that and go on and take the immortality that comes along with it, and I mean immortality in a literal sense, because we have our own star strata, we have our own superstars, we have our own hero worship within our own industry. We are an insulated family. I would warn people about that. Those who accepted it, like Sega and Serena and Kelly Nichols and Pat Manning and Lee Carroll and Tiffany Clark, people that I discovered and I'm very proud of, went on to become famous. Those that didn't, and I would say out of 10,000 women that I've met over the 10 years, I've scared easily over 9,000 out of that office. I was very proud of doing that too. This doesn't make me a saint. I'm not trying to put that down or anything like that. I'm just telling you what I told people. And this is what goes on in the industry. So what I've heard today from behind the screen, it's a horror story, but don't believe all the horrors that exist. Because it isn't all that basic fact. No one forces anybody to do it. We don't chain people up and make them do anything. It is not indentured servitude. It is not slavery.
How do you go about recruiting and casting models for your film?
Well, I don't recruit. There is an ad who runs, ironically, in the Hollywood press. I've been writing for the Hollywood press since it almost began. It's a legitimate ad, which you can enter into evidence here if you like, and it does say that it's fully funded in California State Licensed Talent Agency, which is what I operated and now is still operated down in the valley. Literally lured people in on the guise of getting the job. They talk to the people, as I did, and tell them what they're going to get themselves into. You have to understand that there are many, many levels of the X-rated industry, from just standard nude modeling that you can see in any type of cheesecake photo, all the way to what you call hardcore pornography, which the definition of hardcore is something that has to get up, go in, come out, and go off. So a lot of the stuff that we saw today was not hardcore. Now, I'm being very blunt with you because I figured out that you wanted me up here for. I'm not going to beat around the bush, literally. But I had the ad. I designed the ad. It brought a lot of people in. But when they came in, they were told what they were getting themselves into. And many people, years later, would call and thank me for not letting them into the industry. Because I would warn them out. I didn't need that on my conscience.
But most people that respond to your ad, I am sure, have the illusion that they may very well become a star in the legitimate industry.
Well, now, where are we located? But not in Hollywood. And they're all filled with the idea of becoming a star. But as I would instantaneously warn them, nobody wants any part of it after we've been in the X-rated industry. So you better, if you understand what you're getting yourself into, get in this and take all you can. And that's why we have our superstars. And we have our own star strata. And we have our hero worship. I have staged shows for the superstars at bookstores where 2,000 people have come out and had the autograph signed. Go to any convention, any of these CES shows, consumer electronic shows in Las Vegas and Chicago, the most populated area of any of those shows is the adult section. And they stand for hours in line to get a signature from Vanessa Del Rio, or from Sega, or from the king, John Holmes. This is what it's all about. They are no different than baseball heroes or football heroes.
And once these people come into your agency, how do you cast them into a film?
Well, it's not that easy because, first of all, there aren't films being made all the time. The industry, you have to try and wait for a time when somebody needs that type of person. I can't put, let's say, a black woman into an all-white movie. So if I get a black woman who's attractive, I wait patiently until there's a time where the person can be put to work. Vice versa. The all-black videos were created about 2 years ago, so for a while that was a flourishing situation. So we needed black ladies and black men in the business.
What type of consideration could a model expect to gain to come to see you about beginning in the X-rated film industry?
It varies. In the earliest days of the industry, and I've been around for 13 years, a person would work all day and take home maybe $50. Now a person can work all day and take home $1,500.
What would you have to do to earn $1,500?
Well, in some cases, all you have to do is go over to Hustler magazine and be a centerfold. I myself was a feature story in Hustler. I got $750 for about 6 hours work. In other cases, if they're going to perform a sexual act or 2 or 3, then it's not piecemeal, as one of these people said. It's not done in bartered out sections. They're given a flat rate, they do the job. They make the deal before they go in. No one is taking advantage of them. I have never seen anybody forced into doing anything on an X-rated set, ever. But when I've had people tell me they didn't want to do something and they've left. I recently was involved in a movie 2 weeks ago where the person said, I don't want to work. I said, good, go home.
We've heard testimony, though, that when some of the models arrived at the set, they were paid an extra bonus for performing certain acts that may have not been originally anticipated. Is that the case?
If it's offered to them, they take it, sure.
We've also heard testimony about drugs being used by the models as well as at times by the producers to induce performance. Is that true, or would you have?
I am vehemently anti-drug. Part of my background includes being a probation officer at Central Juvenile Hall, walking distance from here. I've seen kids die from narcotics. I despise drugs. I get high on myself. I have never seen drugs on a set other than marijuana, which is common practice, and it defies logic to dump drugs into a guy who has to get it up, get it in, get it out, get it off on cue because he ain't going to be worth as much. And you study these pictures, you don't see a whole bunch of glassy-eyed women looking at you. You see radiant, gorgeous human beings working on the screen. Way down these kids want to be actors and actresses. I write a lot of scripts and I give them a lot of characters to play, and they have fun doing that.
Father, do you have a question?
Marco, do you have any idea of how many actors and models work in the industry at any one time?
I don't think there are more than 100 to 125 performers at this point in the entire X-rated industry. There are only about 25 men because they something very special to be a man in this business, the ability to function on cue. And the women come through at a faster rate because, of course, the women are the commodity. They are the box cover. They are the front cover of the magazine. They are the centerfold. And they will go through faster, although some of them have stayed for 10, 15 years. So at this point, there are no 1,000 workers in this business because there's no room for the 1,000 people. We have 100 to 125 people who work on a semi-consistent basis.
I thought we had heard testimony that
Yes, we did. 1,000 people.
something like maybe 800 films was made this year. Is that
No, okay, video. There's a big difference between a video and a theatrical venture.
Oh, no, my question referred actually to the whole spectrum of films, both theatrical and video.
Well, theatrical industry is dead. Theaters are going to be turned into bowling alleys because there's no market for putting $100,000 into a movie when you can make 10 videos for $100,000. A video, I have been able to crank out 3 videos in 3 days. I've been able to do them. A hot shot was shot in 23 hours. I've shot videos in 8, 9, 10, 11 hours for $12,000. You use 7 people. You can use the same 7 people all 3 days in 3 videos. You divide a house into sections. You go in, you shoot a bedroom with all the scenes in 3 movies. You shoot a living room with all the scenes in 3 movies. You shoot a kitchen, all the scenes in 3 movies. You walk out the house, you got 3 movies. I'm not overwhelmingly proud of this, but it's become the domino formula theory of video. I would wish to go back to film, where the real creation was, but right now we have to acquiesce to video because that's what the people want. Maybe they won't for a while. Maybe we'll overwhelm them or underwhelm them, and they'll learn their lesson.
So if I understand you correctly, there's about 150 people make all the porn films and
That's right. If you want to go into the bookstores and look, And I hope that you will see all the same faces looking right back out at you. And that's all the complaints I get from the consumer. I go to the bookstore and say, can't you find anybody new? Well, I'm not going out and laugh for them. I do get calls from around the country because my name is known as being an agent, as being somebody you can trust, somebody you can confide in. But when I talk to them over the phone, I tell them when they come into my office, I scare them away then. I've had maybe 5, 6 people on my own into the business in the past year because I'm not an agent per se anymore because I hate going down to the valley. So the agency is run by somebody else. When I was in Hollywood, I did much better because I like to stay with my own little castle. I have fun, but I don't want to go to the valley. So now I stay home and I write a lot of videos and I direct occasionally and I review for the poor of the United Hollywood Press or the previous two down the line.
Mr. Michael, it seems that there's a few classes that are getting adult film industry, and that, am I correct in assuming that you and Mr. Weston are both sort of on the same level in terms of what you accept and what you don't accept in terms of...
Well, I admire Mr. Weston, and Mr. Weston represents the Adult Film Association, and I am against what the Adult Film Association is against because animals don't want any part of this business. There's an old story which this is truly flippant, and I have a feeling the industry is terrified of my being here to be flippant, but when I first got in the industry, and this is 13, 14 years ago, there was a very famous story about a woman who wanted to work with a dog, but it took 6 months to find a dog who wanted to work with her. As far as anything having to do with children, that is truly an aberrant situation. And when you brought up his hair people and people in wheelchairs and stuff like that, it goes without saying we're not going to drag people in like that.
Okay, I have another question related to that, but what I didn't ask Mr. Weston, which I would like to ask you, is do you have the same opinion of simulated acts with adults who appear to be children, or non-handicapped people who appear to be handicapped, or acts of simulated violence?
Well, this is all going under the name of creativity and how well the creativity takes place. There was a statement made today by one of the officers, which was rather interesting. I wonder how many of these films he really has seen. Obviously not dealing with people who can act, so therefore the reactions must be real. Well, another gentleman, I think Clancy was his name, mentioned a movie that I made called Lust Inferno. See Lust Inferno and see what I do, or see what you think I do to the woman that I'm supposedly beating up. There wasn't one scar on her, one mark on her, but I guarantee you that table had a hell of a headache. So, and speaking about people who cannot act, I will put a number of the people in my industry up against mainstream Hollywood performers, people like John Leslie, Jamie Gillis, Eric Edwards, Arbola, Kelly Nichols, can hold their own in mainstream Hollywood. Jerry Butler, I call him the James Dean of our industry.
Was that a yes?
That was a yes as far as people being able to create what looks real.
So you are not opposed to 18-year-olds who are dressed as 12-year-olds who appear to be children having sex with adults?
I'm not opposed to it when it's simply stated. Now, I know that our industry is we're being censored by that within our own industry. You realize that. Webster didn't have a chance to say it, but that's been outlawed now. The young look is past that. Anal sex is out right now. It's no longer used to be in, now it's out, so we can't do that anymore. We're being told what we can do, and it's interesting that in an industry where theoretically there should be no censorship among consenting adults, there is censorship.
Another quick question. You have been involved as an actor, critic, director, publicist, and scriptwriter. Have you ever been involved in the distribution?
No, I've never been involved in distribution because I'm a strange animal in the actor industry. I really have no use for money. I do it because I enjoy the immortality, the ego satisfaction, and the creative glory.
Do you represent a resource, do you consider yourself a resource for someone who's involved in adult films, not with you, who may feel that they are being abused, being taken advantage of, can't get out?
If somebody wants to come to me and tell me that, I can get them out of the industry. Oh, absolutely.
And do you consider yourself a part of a group of people
who, because of the nature and level of the products that you produce, help avoid the kinds of mistreatment that we're hearing about from others involved in what
Yes, I think that our industry is growing up. I think it's growing up because it really wants to be sanctified, and therefore through sanctification it's becoming humane. And I think there are more and more humane people in the industry. I was one of the leaders into it because I looked upon this industry as essentially an overage juvenile hall. And all the kids I was taking care of, and I refer to all of them, and I have models that are older than I am. I'm 42 years old. They're all my children. And they call me Papa Bear, and I have thousands upstairs at home, all of which have been given to me as presents by these kids. So this is family. So when somebody's in trouble, they can call Papa Bear at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I will get them out of trouble. They can't do that in the real world unless they want to pay $200 an hour to a psychiatrist.
do you have in written form, other than what you gave us, anything that specifically describes the rationale behind your opposition to the kind of adult filmmaking that you consider destructive?
No, I can try and look through some articles I've written, but I don't think I have anything like that, because I take each opponent as it comes and just roll right over it.
Do you include in your material sexual acts which might be considered as the previous person testifying degrading to women?
Well, it's interesting. What is degrading to women? The whole thing is, if the woman comes into the motion picture, agrees to play the part, and plays the part well, and the guy is convincing enough to look like he's degrading her, that's simply a motion picture. There were legitimate movies brought up today. One of them was Once Upon a Time in America. That was the one that the gentleman was trying to think about, the race in the car. I don't remember the other one that he was talking about that was on HBO, but The Hitchhiker, which I don't watch. Garbage, as far as I'm concerned, because it's boring. There's no reason for it. I need a motive to my mayhem. I'm a great proponent of Peckinpah because he had a reason to kill people. But if somebody's just beating the hell out of somebody, it doesn't do much for me. I just destroyed my own reviews in Invasion USA and Commando because of pieces of garbage. Rambo was fun. I haven't answered your question, have I?
No. May I request, you have a lot of opinions and principles, and I can see that there are a lot of your own personal reasons for how you perform, and there are lots of situational standards held by people you work with. Can you put that into writing or present us with something that in a more, I don't want to say logical, in a more structured format describe your position on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable?
All right, as far as my opinion, I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Dr. Meese, you have a question?
I'd like to ask whether any of your less talented competitors make use of drugs or coercion or practices that you would find offensive.
I don't know of it. I know that drugs are in my industry. I know that drugs are in almost any form of creative industry because people seem to need them to do whatever they have to do. I've never seen the cocaine nightmare that exists in my business because they know that I hate it. My ex-wife, Drea, who directed 40 videos in 1984, had a whole letter made out that each performer had to sign saying that they would not be involved in any kind of drug situation on the set, or they would be fired immediately with no pay. I taught her that, and she abhorred drugs as much as I did. The cocaine nightmare, where that all comes from is that these kids make a lot of money real fast, and they don't know where to spend it. So there are some people out there that are horrible human beings that provide them with the cocaine. I've also seen that a lot of the kids now are buying land, they're buying cars, they're investing their money. They're learning because one day they may wake up and there might not be any more industry.
What about coercion?
No. The thing is, you can't force somebody to perform a sexual act and then expect that sexual act to look good on the screen. You know, again, I'm going to get flippant and maybe even a little bit vulgar, but we're talking about pornography. Linda Lovelace tried to take me on some TV show recently, I think a year ago or something like that, and she began dabbling how they put a gun to her head. Well, I turned on her, and I do this regularly in a college class, I said, if indeed a kid asked me this, if somebody put a gun, if you put a gun to the head of the girl who was performing fellatio on you, what would be left to perform fellatio on? And I confronted her with that, and she had no answer. So I got her. It just doesn't work. And if you've seen these throats, if there was a gun pointed, the only gun ever put to the head of Linda Lovelace was a gun of hypocrisy, and it's just firing bullets of just pure blindness. She turned on our industry, and she's capitalizing on it.
Are the materials distributed today in still or video or loops or any other means that you think were produced through coercion?
Not in the mainstream. Now, there is an underground in the underground, and I don't know what goes on over there, because years ago, I was told about snuff movies, but now they admit they never existed. But when I first got into the industry, once upon a time, Peters and I, and you had Peters here, Peters arrested me in 74, or 75, the movie that in 74. Peters' partner was a gentleman named Lloyd Martin. And Lloyd Martin, if you're familiar with your Les Miserables, Lloyd Martin was Javert, and I was Jean Valjean. And Lloyd would come to my office many a time and ask me about the loaf of bread. And it got to be ridiculous. They were upset. I think the obsession is less now. I think that because of the mainstream videotape acceptance in mainstream America, and mainstream America does accept the videotape because no longer they have to sneak off speciously or surreptitiously to a theater. They can go into a bookstore, they can buy a tape, they can go home, they can rent a tape and go home, they can go to a major market and get a tape. Video is all over the place. More power to it, I guess, because that's the way of the future.
What was the first year you heard the term snuff film in use?
Well, you have to remember that the legitimate world put out a movie called Snuff. Where? Okay, that was probably around 74. That was Finley's movie, and if you look real close, that woman had a rubber throat. Nice prosthetic. They went down and got a South American movie, trumped it up with a bunch of American garbage, and put out a movie called Snuff. Everything is P.T. Barnum syndrome. And there's a sucker born every minute, and they're going to capitalize on it.
Have you ever heard of the term or the phenomenon before that, Hollywood film?
Lloyd Martin kept on telling me that they were killing people in Texas, the man with the candy touch situation. The supposed little boy movies that they're making down there, the Gacy film, stuff like that. But now we have a man saying he's never seen one. I don't think he sees it as fictitious. They're nightmares. They're nightmarish dreams. They're in a sense, they're almost anti-wishful thinking. They'd like to have one, and then they get damaged to hell. But it ain't going to work. We can't afford to kill somebody today because we got to use them tomorrow. There are only 125 of them. You know, again, I don't mean to be flippant, but I have been doing this for 13 years. I'm trying to defend an industry that everybody attacks for various reasons, from criminals to drugs to forcing people into servitude, for dragging poor unwilling German shepherds in. It's just not. The thing is, all we are is a creative medium. And one more bit of flippancy, and I guess that'll be the end of it, because you people got to be tired. And I've been up since 4 o'clock, and I wrote this thing at 4. I liken myself to a Reggie Jackson, except I play with a different type of bat and a different type of ball. Other questions? All right, go ahead.
You lost me or something. You worked with Central Juvenile Hall.
Yes, I was a probation officer.
Yes. You worked with kids who I'm sure had been molested or abused for a
No.
No,
Those kids go to McLaren Hall. I worked at Central, where the kids were the murderers, the rapists, the robbers. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that.
I know about some that I worked with too when I worked at McLaren Children's Center now. Some of those kids were molested or abused, but you worked with none of them. Had ever been molested or abused?
They never told me about it. But I will tell you an interesting story.
What my point is that when you talk about someone being unable to perform sex because they are under stress, I'm surprised by someone who works with kids saying that, because then you lose me in your whole line of thinking.
No, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about your statement about Linda Lovelace being unable to perform fellatio if there were a gun to her head.
As convincing as she did in Deep Throat to become a superstar, you gotta be kidding.
Did you like it, did she?
But it sounds good now, doesn't it?
What I'm saying is I don't especially want to argue the point, except to clarify what you're saying is that you don't, that is your only line of reasoning for believing Linda Lovelace was a willing participant was because she couldn't have done that unless...
Well, yes, it's the most logical reasoning of all. You have to see something in her face, something in her mannerisms, something in her eyes, some sense of terror. You can't fake that type of participation. Linda Lovelace knew and reveled in her stardom until her stardom was no more. Then she turned on our industry with a book called Ordeal, and she's been capitalizing on it ever since. I don't begrudge that. I just hate liars. She has denied that she ever worked with an animal. I have seen the dog film she worked with, called Dogorama. And when the maker of that film's mother dies, he will cram it down her deep throat.
Okay, I don't want to argue that case. I just want to say for the record that I think it is an incorrect assumption that someone is not capable of appearing to be enjoying being involved in sexual activity if they feel their life is at stake. I think based upon the experience of working with children who are molested,
Well, yeah, like I said, I worked at juvenile hall. I never heard anything about molested kids or anything like that because I had pretty tough kids down there to work with. I loved them. We had a lot of fun.
Other questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Margot. We'll now recess till tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one footnote to that? Just real brief. Apparently, here today there was mention of the fact that there is legislation about being marked up in the Senate on child porn by, I think, authored by Senator Helms and someone else. Can we ask the staff to not only get us a copy of that, but to analyze it in relationship to what we heard today?
Yes, sir.
So now 10 minutes after 11 on Wednesday, October the 16th, 1985. This concludes the first day's meeting of the Commission on Obscenity and Pornography of 1985.